So again, let's think about historically, in ancient cultures, people gathering around a fire, and when do you usually gather around a fire? At night. And so everybody gathers around a fire, and you begin to tell a story. I wish I could turn the lights down in here, but this is all I can do. And so just imagine for a moment that you are, at this point in time, we're sitting around the fire, okay? Follow me along on this, right? I can feel, and you can feel, the heat of that fire on your face. And it kind of alternates. You can also feel the cool breeze along with the heat going back and forth. And you can smell the smoke of the fire. And you can kind of feel it in your eyes, making you tear a little bit. And if you tilt your head back, you can even see the stars, right? And so we move then into the next story. And let's just be together here for a little bit with the story, again, one that I heard long ago, and it just sticks with me, about a wayward pilgrim. Okay? So throughout history, the European continent has just endured one devastating war after another. And we find that when we look at the literature, a period immediately following those wars, it's kind of reflective, and people are like, what did we do? Why do we behave this way? And there's regret, and there's people seeking meaning. What is the meaning of life? Why this can't be it, that we, attack each other and steal from each other. There's got to be more. So after one of these periods, there was a religious order that came to be. And this religious order, it claimed to have all this secret knowledge and meaning. And so people who learned of the order, they wanted to join, and they wanted to become a part of it and gain that secret knowledge of life. So there's a group of young men who have been initiated into this order. They're brand new into it. And in order to move up in this order, the very first thing that they have to do is they have to take a pilgrimage. And they take a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. So this is a European religious order, right? And so they gather together, and they're getting ready to leave on their journey. And they have this man who is their guide. His name is Leo. And Leo is not like anybody you've probably ever met, okay? Leo, he can talk to animals, and they practically understand what he's saying, right? He's like the horse whisperer, okay? If an animal is, agitated, he can calm it down. And he can tell them, go do this, and they'll do it. And so he's their guide on this trip, and he's also really amazing with people. So when they are ready to leave on their journey, they take off, and in Europe they have to move through the Alps, and so they leave in the springtime so they have decent weather. They don't want to get caught in storms in the Alps. And they take off, and they find that this man, this Leo, every morning he is up before everybody else wakes up. And he prepares their food, and he gets the pack animals ready, and he cleans up after them. And, once they're on their way, he sings to keep their motivation up every day throughout the journey. And he whistles, when he works, and he's just an amazing fellow. And so they keep going on their journey, and they're moving along, and they go through, Austria and Hungary and Romania and Bulgaria, and there's all these foreign cultures that they're encountering, and different languages and different clothing styles. And everywhere they go, Leo knows where to stop that's safe and what to avoid, and he knows who to negotiate with to get, water, food, anything that they need. And the journey just keeps going along peacefully. They're making good progress, and pretty soon they're crossing over into Turkey. Okay? Now, Turkey, they're really in a foreign land, because now all of a sudden they're out of the Christian environment of Europe, and they're into a Muslim country. And so they're a little, the men are feeling a little bit less safe and a little bit less at ease. And especially one morning they wake up, and they wake up later than they normally do because it's quiet. They don't hear Leo, rattling around with pots and pans and cooking and whistling and doing his thing. And they look around and they can't find Leo. What happened to Leo? Where did they go? And what do we do without Leo? Okay, he's our guide. And so they start to fight a little bit among themselves. Should we look for him? Should we wait for him? Should we stay? Should we go? And after, a day or so, they decide Leo's not coming back. I don't know if, the locals got him. I don't know if he took off. I don't know what happened, but we have to keep going on our journey. And as they continue on their journey, they find that everything is different. They fight among themselves, okay? Who's doing more than who? Whose turn is it to do what? They're bickering, and the progress is slow because they don't exactly know where to go from one place to the next. And everything's starting to break down on this journey. Okay. So they're getting frustrated. They're getting really frustrated. And one of the men, his name is Dolan, he's the son of a noble, but he's an orphan. His dad was killed in the war. Okay. And he's getting really frustrated with this whole thing and all the other people. He's tired of them. And he finally blurts out, this guy was a crook. He led us out into the wilderness, and he left us here, and he took a bunch of valuable things with him. And I'm done. I'm done with this religious order. I'm done with this pilgrimage. I'm going home. So he turns around and he heads back home. And he can do it because, he knows the way to go home, just doesn't know the way forward. And he gets home, and he goes about his life, and over time, he finds that life just isn't quite the same to him. Okay? He's kind of turned bitter, and he's kind of given up on those ideals of, there's some real truth, some meaning here. And he stops doing all the things that he loved. He loved poetry. He gives up his poetry. He loved music. He gave up his instruments. And he grows older and older, and he gets more and more bitter as he gets older. Until one day he says, I have to find out what happened to Leo. This is where my life went wrong. And so he goes searching for Leo. And he's surprised. He has no trouble finding him. He's right where they originally met as a group. Leo is a servant on an estate near where Dolan lived, and he takes care of the animals. And Dolan, Leo, he hardly seems like he's aged at all. And he's still whistling as he works, and the animals love him. Okay, he, life hasn't changed for him, and Dolan is so bitter. And so Dolan, he's trying to talk to Leo, and he's assuming that Leo is going to recognize him, and then he's going to be like, gotcha. Okay? But Leo never really responds in that way. They chat about, the weather and this and that and the other thing. And pretty soon Dolan gets really frustrated, and he says, this guy doesn't remember me. I just wasted more time. So he turns around and goes back home. And he writes this really scathing letter. And he complains about everything that's gone wrong in his life. And he's pointing back to this religious order and to Leo, and he's blaming them for everything that has gone wrong in his life. And he sends this letter to Leo. And he's shocked a couple of days later when he wakes up, and there is Leo sitting in his room. Okay? And Leo says, you need to get up and come with me. The religious order, they've summoned you. They want to talk to you. And I will take you there. And so Dolan follows him, and he's, like, I didn't think this thing even existed still. I didn't know. And when he gets there, he has to gather, there's a whole bunch of other people who are a part of the religious order in the room, and up at the top of the room there's a stage, and there's 5 thrones up at the top. And 4 of them are occupied, 1 is empty. And he has to stand there and he has to listen to these 4 leaders of this religious order, and they go through his letter and they point out everything in his life that he has done wrong and why he is responsible for his own misery. And Dolan, as he stands there, his head just kind of hangs lower and lower and lower. And he realizes, I wasted my own life. This is my fault. And he's getting ready for this religious order. They're going to pass judgment on him. And just before they get to that point, Leo stands up and he says, wait. And Leo, he walks up the stage and he sits at that center throne. Okay? And he says, Dolan, I realize that you have regret here. You've recognized the error of your ways. And so we're going to restore you to the order. We forgive you. We know that you've learned, and you can move forward now as an initiate again in this religious order. But I have to tell you something. I'm the head of the religious order. Okay? I'm the leader of this religious order. And what happened was I took you on this journey. And for half of that journey, all the way to Turkey, I showed you every single day how you are supposed to behave as a human being and as a member of a community. You're supposed to lift up your fellows and encourage them, and you serve them, and you don't fight about who did the most or whose turn it is to do what. If something needs to be done, that's what you're supposed to do. Just do it. Okay? And do it happily and sing your song as you're doing it. And so, the story goes on, the original story, but we're gonna end it there. Because that's kind of the point that we wanna look at here is this Leo and Dolan and this group of people, this group of initiates who engaged in this pilgrimage. And what do we learn from them on their journey? We learned how a community is supposed to function, and it's that civic engagement, right? Everybody has their job that they need to be doing, and they need to be serving other people within the community. That's what it means. So when we talk about civic engagement, we're talking about community. And we tend to think of community as being like, oh, it's my neighborhood, or it's the town that I live in, or whatever it might be. Okay? But if you were to live in a gigantic apartment building in New York City, I can tell you that is not a community. You don't know your neighbors, and they don't know you, and nobody cares. You just walk past each other every day. There's no hi, how are you? Okay? So just because you live in the same place and you're among the same people, that's not enough to make a community. There's something else that has to be there. So we need to think about community in a little bit different sense. So I can be a member of a community that isn't even necessarily in the same place. So if you were a fan of a football team or a baseball team or anything, how do you become a member of that community? Well, you wear the gear, right? And when I see somebody else walking down the street and they're wearing the same gear, we're part of the same community. We share something. We're working for the same cause. Okay? So that's civic engagement, and that's what a community is. I want to give you just a couple of quick allegories here that will help us to understand what community is a little bit further.